Hi there, this is Andrei, and you are on the Marketing Innovation Podcast Show. Our special guest today is Donohue, and you might already know him from a previous episode on our podcast when we were discussing blockchain and crypto technology. However, today things are going to be a bit different and very exciting because today we'll be talking about actually the company that Tom has been a core member of since the beginning, and they're also our main podcast booking partner, Kitcaster, which have been along the journey with us for the past year or so. So we'll be talking about secrets of product marketing and Tom's journey with Kitcaster, launching it into the market and growing it as a company. And in parallel, we'll also be looking at podcast marketing and how you can market your podcast show if you do run or are planning to run a podcast in the near future. So, Tom, it's such a pleasure to reconnect and to have you again on the show. How are you? How's the summer treating you so far?
Yeah, it's great to be back on here. Had a great time last time, and looking forward to talking to some more podcast marketing topics this time. Yeah, it's summer over here in Denver. Everybody thinks it's always cold here, but the other day we hit like 104. We had a couple 100-degree days, so we're sweating out here. We got the air conditioning turned on to the max.
Summer weather.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
Super. So let's get started. I think because I've been thinking about the best way to build the context, and I think um, even though some of the people might already know you as the smart tech guy that was part of all these multiple projects in the past, including blockchain and other types of technology, I think this is a great opportunity for us to talk a bit more about you as the product guy, the product marketer, and the entrepreneur that in partnership with Ryan and everybody else built what is today Kitcaster. So if you'd
Sure.
like to share a bit of your journey with the company and how you guys went about launching it and where you are with it at the moment.
Sure, definitely. So, for anyone who doesn't know, the way that I've been in contact with Andre here is through our company Kitcaster that we've got here in Denver. We're a podcast booking agency, and we focus on booking, top entrepreneurs, coaches, executives on very targeted podcasts that can help them to promote their brand to the right types of audiences that they want to reach and, network with. So basically what I do at Kitcaster, which my entrepreneurship background had helped me to get into this position. And just to be clear, I'm not a founder of Kitcaster, but I was hired pretty early on. So, within like the first, few hires that we have there. And I was brought on to be a product manager for the PGL service that we do, it's called the podcast guest list. It's an online platform where hosts can go to find suitable guests for their show, and it's pretty simple. It's an invite only program right now. Andre, I know you've used it before. You're actually on there as a guest as well, so that's something we like to do with the hosts is get them listed as guests as well. And it encourages a lot of like podcast swaps and things, but basically it's for hosts to go on and send an invite to any particular type of guest that they might be looking for that we might have access to. So it's basically just a networking platform that helps people connect. We have a lot of guests who want to go on podcasts, and we know a lot of hosts who are looking for guests. So we just built this platform to make that connection. And yeah,
Mhm.
that's how I started working at Kitcast, working on that. And now I'm also the back end like support email and database manager for the company as well, while being a product manager. So it's a lot. I do a lot of podcast stuff all day, every day. So yeah, just being on podcasts as well is another thing to it. It's another part of the job.
It
Yeah.
completes the full circle.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So, what's your feeling about the market? I mean, essentially, this is a platform, and it's a platform to connect guests with hosts, and essentially build up this online community in a way. It's
Mhm.
also a bit of a SaaS in the way that people can use it themselves, obviously with your support to make sure that the bookings happen and everything is going smoothly. And you guys are doing a great job at it. Now,
Thank you. Yeah.
how? No worries, nothing to thank me for. Thank you. So how did you see the market evolve over the last maybe 2 years since you started to prepare this for the market?
Sure. I would say probably the biggest thing that has changed about the podcast market is the shift away from Apple Podcast onto more spread out platforms. We got like Spotify, Podchaser, Buzzsprout. Like there's an endless amount of podcasting platforms now, and the listenership is so spread out that one thing that has been hard for us is actually like tracking engaging listenership in terms of impressions, how many downloads is the show getting? Because originally with podcasting, like Apple Podcast was the one and only. Like if you go and see how many reviews or ratings a show has on Apple Podcasts, you can get a really good idea about the type of listenership, how much reach a specific client is going to get by going on a certain show. But these days, and especially within the past 6 months, we've seen such a huge expansion out to these different platforms, um, more indie platforms that are popping up for certain types of podcasts or certain types of demographics. Listenership is just spreading out so much between them that it's actually become harder to gauge the exact metrics that any certain show might have. So that's a challenge that we're facing right now, and we're kind of figuring out new ways to figure those things out. It's always the best if the host just tells you like the numbers that they see, but it's kind of hard to ask that of a host. And we respect any show, small or large, and we think that there's benefit in going on any sort of show,
Mm-hmm.
um, because as long as there's a great conversation being had, we see the best marketing tool that you get from podcasting as the opportunity for you to repurpose that content and use it in different places. So yeah, I would say biggest change is just that spread out, that jump away from Apple Podcasts onto these newer, more indie platforms.
Mm-hmm. And regarding your strategy in terms of go to market and launching the PGL, which you are managing at the moment, um, how are things in that area? And the reason why, or the purpose of the question would be, I know for a fact there are a couple of people that are tuned into our podcast, most likely today as well, and they are preparing the launch of, everybody in their space, but the launch of platforms or marketplaces. So I think there would be a really nice benefit to them to hear about your story from way back when maybe the platform wasn't yet live, and why you chose it to be invite only, how you got onto building the community, the initial community around it, and also maybe what's your plan for the future? Like, do you want to keep it like this forever? Do you have certain metrics or things that you are looking to achieve before going into the next phase? Let's discuss a bit the sort of product and business launch and growth strategy from your perspective.
Definitely. Okay. So it's a couple things there. Definitely.
Yeah.
So the PGL, I would say for anybody going to start like a new platform or something like this, one of the best things that we had done is just simply, to the extent that you can, just give it away. Like let people use it for free. Like the free trial loss aversion model is huge in these types of subscription services. In a sense that, hey, take this for free, try it for a while, and then also that just encourages usership, and we get people on the platform actually using it, so that when somebody hops on, it's like, oh, there are people on here. I would say always, to the extent that you can, just to start off, give it away, get people using it. In that way, you start to figure out what is working with your platform, what's not working, where you can improve, and just mainly what the people want. And then, as you start getting that feedback and refining the platform, you can go and, start charging people. And initially we did give away like a lot of the placement spots as gifts to like good guests that we know or good on podcasts. Maybe they were our clients on the agency side. And we gave them the spots on the PGL just so that we had guests on there for when hosts come on and they want to invite somebody. And then, eventually you start to understand what is good about your platform, and then you can start charging people. So, we phase out the gift people, saying, hey, you know, either like your free trial is over, or like, thank you so much for having on the platform. Like, if you want to stay on, we'll give you this discounted rate or something like that. And then, ultimately your goal is to have all paid users on your platform, right? So, but it never hurts to say, if you have 10 really solid guests that, a lot of hosts like to invite, it's always up to you to keep certain people on, or like, do things that will improve your platform, just in any way possible, really. And one of the things that we're really focusing on now is marketing through like LinkedIn, and just networking through our already existing podcasting connections to try to get more hosts onto the platform, because we've been pretty successful getting new clients and guests onto the platform who want to be on shows. But now one of the problems that we're facing and addressing right now through our marketing efforts is getting more hosts to be aware of the platform and know that they could come on here and use it for free. So just like some background for your listeners, the way that the platform works is that people who want to go on podcasts pay a subscription to be listed on the platform, and it's actually free to hosts. So, Andrei, you've used it to invite guests. It's completely free for a host to invite a guest, and we just make that connection and make the recording happen. But for the guests, since they're getting all the content and the use out of the interviews and stuff, that's where we decided to monetize this platform.
Okay. And what was the reasoning behind having it invite only in the phase one?
Yeah, for sure. So the invite only thing, we kind of wanted to just start out with people who we knew were going to get good use out of it. So we didn't want to have a bunch of like random hosts that we didn't know coming on and sending invites to guests and then like flaking out on interviews, and then vice versa. We didn't want to have a bunch of random guests coming on and then booking interviews with these hosts who are really excited to use the platform and then not showing up. So that was kind of the idea, is make it invite only at first with people who we know are going to use it properly, and hosts that we know are going to send invites and also come through with the interviews and provide good content. And that in that way, we just believe that like if we kept all of the kind of BS of people missing interviews and all these problems out of the way, it would help us to figure out what was working and what wasn't working with the platform a little bit easier, a little bit faster.
And did you start with seed funding, or was it a VC funded business in the beginning, or you had to kind of like bootstrap it and grow it as you launched?
So the PGL was kind of an afterthought. Kitcaster started as a booking agency where we have dedicated agents who pitch clients to specific shows. So the company's kind of split into like, we have the PGL and we have the booking agency. The booking agency came first, and through revenue generated by the booking agency, we were able to, our founder Ryan just built the platform and used his network to fill it up with those initial spots. And then I came on and I kind of took it over and trying to expand it. So I guess you could say it was bootstrapped, but really just funded by revenue of the booking agency at first.
Like a sort of like a second business pillar or a second brand or product of the same. Yeah. Makes sense.
And in turn, that the booking agency was bootstrapped by our founders, Ryan and Brandy.
Okay. And how do you see your growth as actually first, what do you feel it's different between Kitcaster and PGL and other SaaS companies out there? Because I'd like these sort of differences to be very clear as we advance through the conversation.
Sure. So we're seeing a ton of similar PGL type services coming up. Guest lists that hosts can use to invite. So we've got a lot of competition popping up in that realm. And also at the same time, there's a ton of competition in the booking agency sense. But one thing that Kitcaster has been, you know, really proud of, and like we take as one of our morals is, you know, we actually care. Like there's, we always hear it from all our clients all the time. It's like, hey, like you guys are the most pleasurable to work with. Like, and we, I think for the price point that we're set at, we provide so much value to our clients that um, is not only, you know, cheap, but is like um, just really full and, you know, gives them exactly what they need out of their experience for a price that's typically lower than other services that are providing a little bit less and a little bit um, less attention to detail. At least that's what we've heard from feedback through our clients. So we really just
Hmm.
try to, you know, get to know the client as best as we can and do a really good job communicating and booking them on the shows that are going to help them the most, rather than
Hmm.
just throwing them on any given show to, you know, complete their contract or whatever. Like we really try to give the clients the most out of what they're paying for.
Hmm. So focusing a lot on this client customer service element of the business.
Yeah, it's a really personal thing. Like, you know, for the agency side, especially when you have a booking agent who's dedicated to a certain client, um, you know, you really get to know the client and you really get to know the things that they want to talk about on an interview and, you know, their the inner workings of their business and what they're trying to promote. And, you know, you take that experience and you go and you find shows that are going to help them in the best way possible. And I think
Hmm.
that, you know, the care that our agents put in is something that, you know, puts us a step above a lot of these other booking agencies.
Agree and approve.
Nice. Yeah, of course.
And in terms of the actual marketing of the business, I know you guys, I mean, I'm sure this gets you a lot of word of mouth in terms of, referrals and your current partners referring and bringing people back into the business. But in
Mhm.
terms of the communications channels, apart from LinkedIn, you mentioned now, what are some channels that have particularly performed well for you as a platform and as a business, maybe this year in 2021?
For sure. Yeah, like you said, we do get a lot of referrals from previous clients and stuff, and those are usually, you know, really good because you know we have our sales funnel where referrals come in or leads come in, and then they go through the sales process. And I'd say, you know, other client referrals are some of the most successful in terms of closing deals for us. Um, but then I would say almost the entirety of our lead generation and then ultimately sales fulfillment has gone through LinkedIn, especially in
Hmm.
2020. Um, just LinkedIn outreach. And then also we use a couple specific LinkedIn like lead generation softwares for automation
Hmm.
um, that have helped us to network with like the right kinds of people that we're looking for, funded startup founders, CEOs, executives, coaches. Um, LinkedIn has been huge for us. And then outside of that, I would say the two other main things that we're using are Google AdWords to drive traffic to the website, and then also Facebook marketing as well
Hmm.
through both Instagram and the Facebook platform.
Hmm.
But now we're in 2021, we've started to branch out a little bit more into more creative and specified content. You know, for podcasting, just to promote like our motto that we use is celebrate good conversation, and we've been trying to promote that through like fun content and material that we spread around through Facebook, Instagram. You know, great visuals for people to see and enjoy. And again, you know, we book people on podcast interviews to spread their businesses. We've also been booking each other on podcast interviews. So we book the founders, Brandy and Ryan, and then we have, you know, a couple other agents who go on podcasts as well to talk about us, just like what we're doing right now. Like you know, we sell it, but we also partake in it as well. It's in our eyes one of the best ways to promote, especially to promote a podcast agency, is through podcasting. So
Yeah, walking the talk.
definitely. Oh, and there's one other thing for our agency that we just started in 2021. We started sponsoring podcasts as well. So you know how shows will do like a mid roll or like a pre roll, a read, or like a recorded thing to say, hey, we're an affiliate with this with Kitcaster podcasting agency, that's where we get our guests and things like that. So we started a sponsorship program to also try to put some money back in like the host pocket. So it's a program that works by compensating hosts for like the amount of leads they could bring us through their show. And
Mhm.
also, if there was a deal to be closed through a host, they would also get a portion of that as a payout in the affiliate program. So
Mhm.
that's something we just started. It's fairly new, but we have like really high hopes for that, and it's been going really well so far.
Yeah, I think it's an approach that should work because you kind of keep it in the family, and it's also around, kind of the same community. Mainly, if you want to build onto the podcast uh, hosts, then I think a lot of the podcast hosts are also podcast listeners. So I think this can work
Definitely,
very nicely for you. Let me know
for sure.
how it plays out. I'd be really curious, but I'm sure you will see some nice results from it.
For sure. Yeah, we gotta get the marketing innovation podcast on there. So you could become an affiliate with us. Yeah, it's really exciting. We have a lot of hosts who are really hyped to, get started. And, as with any podcast host, like a lot of times, you want to spread information and, have good conversation and stuff, but being able to monetize your show is, a great goal to have as well. So we wanted to help hosts figure out how they could do that. So yeah, after I'll send you the link and you can
We'll,
check it out and let me know
yeah,
what you think about it.
we'll discuss online. Oh, sorry, offline.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, sure thing. So, you touched on something that I think would be really interesting to develop on, and that was using podcasting as an effective content marketing tool. And
Mhm.
this has been one of the things that, the audio platform in general, if you or you guys tuning in would look back on our agency work, pushing the sort of audio channel was something that we wanted to do from our second year on the market. So in 2017, we started to write a lot about it, and sort of this voice channel was also developing with Amazon at the time. We had our own app developed by one of our very close friends at the moment, and pushed out in America, and that did so well, like way better than we expected in terms of user engagement and everything. We
Mhm.
had an Alexa skill for marketing news. We might actually relaunch that because at the time it really surpassed our expectations. Um,
Definitely.
but podcasting is, I mean, then it was pretty big. Right now is gigantic, and it's
Yeah.
something that is in a way easily accessible from a marketer's point of view, because there are more and more podcasts, more diversified. And as you mentioned, Tom, it's also a great way to produce owned content from a thought leader's position or perspective. So
Definitely.
from your insights and from your experience, both with the company but also with the guys that go on podcasts and the guys that book them, um, how do you see podcasts and content marketing going together?
Sure. So one thing that we always kind of think about, and one thing that really struck me when I started working here was like we have these big tech CEOs and executives as our clients who are really um, very well thought out and like elaborate speakers who can say just the greatest things about their own company. Um, but then again, these people are so busy that like, how hard would it be for you know Amazon to get there? See how hard would it be for Amazon to get Jeff Bezos to sit down for an hour and talk about Amazon for content marketing? It's probably pretty hard because that dude's doing so much stuff all the time. So what we try to do is just schedule into these executives busy work weeks and an hour here, an hour there, and then in turn what you get is an hour of your CEO or your founder talking about your company. And through good hosts and everything, you can get these really great conversations that come out. And we created a content marketing studio
Mhm.
for our clients as well, to help show them. And we also do media trainings and things like that, to help show them how they can take the content and
Mhm.
repurpose it. So we turned it into blog posts, we turned it into little videos, screen grabs, audio grabs, quotes, all of those types of things. And it just, you can take a 45-minute podcast interview and turn it into upwards of 25 pieces of marketing material that you can use for weeks on end.
Mhm.
So that's something we just started doing with the content marketing studio. And I believe what you said, you guys do something similar. This is just something that we offer to our clients. Like, say they had a interview, say somebody was on the marketing innovation show and they thought that it went really well and they wanted to, get a little bit more out of that.
Mhm.
They can commission us to create the entire suite of marketing material for that. So we think that that's just, the best thing to get out of these podcast interviews is all of that extra marketing material that you can use. And you're sharing it on socials, you're sharing it on through email blasts, you're sharing it everywhere that you can. And
Mhm.
really just dragging out and spreading that content that you get that might not be so easy to get, from your founder or your CEO. Um, these podcast interviews are helping to provide those marketing teams with, the core content that they need to create this material.
Mhm. Mhm. And in terms of the promotion of these podcasts and the marketing materials, so first off, just to emphasize on this aspect of creating content off the podcast that you record, for everybody out here that doesn't do that, but they do go on podcasts or they have their own podcast, guys, this is like the content marketing 101 strategy you should
Yeah,
follow. And if you don't have
definitely.
resources, reach out to Tom here and see how these
Definitely.
guys can help you if you are already maybe part of the Kitcaster family. But that is going to be even easier. But Tom, we'll leave in the description your email address as well,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
people can reach out. This is something very important, since you put in the resources and eventually even commission somebody to book this for you as a thought leader. Getting your company or your marketing manager on board to develop more content around this one piece, is definitely something that you should do in order to increase your return on investment. And we actually do this, with the podcast as well. And Tom,
Mhm.
but everybody that's been on our show received a core marketing package, let's say.
Yeah,
So that kind of helps us as a podcast in terms of promoting it, but also them as the thought leader or podcast guest to communicate this position to their audience. And
exactly.
here we are going into our second topic, which is good ways of promoting podcasts. And
Mhm.
here, I would like to speak less and let you, Tom, talk a bit more about through the constant and direct contact that you have with the podcast hosts. What are some of the
Mhm.
best ways and strategies that you found worked well for them in promoting their shows, growing their listenership, and eventually, being able to monetize their podcast because they were getting so much reach?
Definitely. Yeah, so there's tons of ways that hosts can go and promote their episodes, and I'm always hopping on calls to help people understand these types of things and stuff. So, um, you know, when you think about it, the easiest way that anyone can think of is just put a little bit of money behind an episode to promote it. Which not always is something that's available to do, but when you can, it really does help. Like, for example, we know of a couple shows that from the outside looking in, their Apple podcast, maybe they don't have a ton of ratings or reviews, but the show could be, reaching tens of thousands of people and, get driving great results for their guests and their clients and things like that. And that's simply because of the money that they put behind their shows to promote each episode, whether it's through, Facebook, Google, through podcast marketing, like with Buzzsprout or other of those podcast platforms that can help you promote certain episodes.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen shows just have a ton of success in that way. And whether it's, we call shows that, so some shows will request, you to pay for an interview, like to pay to be on the show. We call them pay to play shows. Say you were doing that, like a pay to play situation, and rather than, sliding that money in your pocket, you use it to promote the episode. That's a great way to kind of drive a little bit of monetization into your episode as well, in terms of interviewing a guest as a pay to play, and then you're also promoting it to get a larger reach, and then ultimately you can grow your show that way. That's one thing that we suggest, is to really put money behind the show. But then also, another thing that we suggest as well is to interview guests. Like there's really nothing else to it rather than that. If you're bringing on, guests with big followings, or, important people, it's in turn just going to drive listenership. And when you bring, for example, say you interviewed a big CEO with, 100,000 followers, and they shared that to their network, you know, you could be certain that, at least a couple thousand new people are going to hear your show. And, you could be certain that a couple of them are going to like your show too and listen to it moving forward, rather than just the CEO that they follow whenever they're on it. So, yeah, we suggest, just even if it's a minimal ad budget behind a show, that could really do great numbers. And then also, interviewing great, like, qualified guests who have good followings, doing things like podcast swaps with other hosts, where, say like you, for example, Andrei would go onto another marketing podcast, they would interview you, and then you would take that host and interview them on your show. So then you're swapping audiences, and the same type of people who would listen to that show likely would be interested in your show as well. So those are kind of the three like main things we suggest, podcast swaps with other hosts, interviewing awesome guests, and then, just putting, a small but manageable ad budget behind promoting, maybe not every episode, but if you have a really good episode that you feel really strongly about, you could promote that.
Super. And also here, I would just like to put out a thought, but I think this really delivers again to what you said now and to what we were discussing about content marketing. I think for everybody here really that has a show and produces content in this way, I think apart from promoting just the podcast, remember that you probably also have a business and you can combine the two. And then looking at just apart from really pushing the reach of your podcast, think about the other benefits that having a podcast can bring to your business. Because, for example, through repurposing the content, and maybe you have it in an audio or video form, but YouTube also has an SEO element to it. So if you do optimize your video well before uploading it, and there are a couple of tools even free if you want to make a start, but you don't really have budget to invest into YouTube SEO or YouTube advertising as in ads, then just doing some core optimization in terms of SEO can really help your videos reach more people and more relevant people. But also you can transition the content that is audio or video into written content, and then you have new content for, first of all, for the podcast description, because it's really important from a quality standpoint to have shows that are multimedia and that have a good description and everything else links, but for your business website maybe as well. So apart from just putting the link to the episode on your podcast, on your website, you can also produce blog posts, and you can help your guests, maybe if you are a host, produce meaningful content for their websites if they don't have the resource of the basis of the content that you produce together on the show. And optimizing that content from an SEO point of view, again, can be a very good opportunity to create new quality content and drive SEO results to your website or your business or your guest business. So maybe, Tom, this might be something that you guys, I guess, are doing as well through the content hub as well.
Yeah, you said it right there yourself, that I forgot to mention that in terms of the host side, but the same thing that we say to clients, it's like repurpose your content, use it in as many ways as you can, and drag one episode out and spread it onto a bunch of different platforms, not just your Apple Podcast, your Spotify, but get it onto YouTube, start recording video, start making Instagram posts from the video that you have, or audio grabs, a really great quote that came out of your show, from a great guest, share that around everywhere that you can. And, it's going to help, and it's going to make people want to listen to your episode, really. So yeah, you said it yourself. And the SEO is also extremely important. A way for you to get in front of more eyes for free, like without having to put an ad budget behind it. Just, it takes a little bit of time and work to optimize that SEO stuff. But ultimately, sometimes that can drive better results than, Google Ads budget or anything like that.
And also it's more sustainable from a time point of view. Like once you get it, it's probably going to be recurring for
Yeah, you
for
could
a little
forget
while.
about it once you get it set up.
hmm and now sort of like a more general question, but I think it's been on the minds of more podcasters, including myself. And you might have more data around this. But sort of like a closing question. What are your thoughts on podcast or actually streaming platforms? So, Spotify has been focusing a lot on podcasts over the last year or so. As you mentioned, a lot of new players have come into the market in terms of streaming. Um, I don't know. How do you feel about Spotify, for example, in comparison to Apple Podcasts? And then what other rising stars have you identified in the streaming world?
Definitely. So I think that one of the biggest changes we're seeing is the the change from podcast downloads as a metric to more, podcast streams. Because when Apple Podcast was the sole, you know, one of the main well, it is still obviously the main, but when it was almost the sole podcasting platform, the biggest metric that people were looking for to promote on podcasts and hosts were promoting is the number of downloads that they're getting.
Mhm.
And now, that's not even really a thing anymore. It's more about the streams. As this listenership is coming off of Apple Podcast, I think we're going to see a shift more terms the same way that like music streaming is measured. How many streams does a song get? Um, you know, how many downloads does a song get was never really a metric. It's kind of been,
Mhm.
streams and listenership or purchases. But with podcasting, I think we're going to see the same thing. We're already shifting away from downloads as a metric. We don't really even discuss downloads as a metric with our clients anymore. We're starting to go into more, how many streams does a show have, or like ratings and reviews usually help. But which platform do you choose to use ratings and reviews from? you know, it's been hard. So we think that ultimately an aggregate will probably present itself pretty soon here. It's something that the industry is kind of needing, and
Mhm.
I think we'll definitely see that soon. In terms of other platforms that have been big that we've been hearing about and seeing pop up, let me just see. I think I have a list here, but we definitely, Buzzsprout is a huge one. um, Anchor FM is one that has also been pretty big for us. Libsyn is another platform. Spotify has been getting much bigger into podcasts.
Mhm.
There's Podchaser is
Mhm.
another big one. Um, there's just so many out there, and Stitcher Radio.
Mhm.
Sorry, I was just looking at my list here. But then also Google Podcast hopped into it as well. So obviously Google has to have a part in everything. A lot of hosts are posting on SoundCloud these days as well.
Do you have any data
Yes,
on SoundCloud? For example, we haven't been really active there. And I don't have a lot of first-hand data on the platform. Do you know how it does in comparison with other platforms?
we rarely see it as a place where it's like the podcast's sole platform. Sometimes we see people just uploading to SoundCloud because it's easy to let people download your episodes through SoundCloud. So
Mhm.
maybe people are doing it as sort of a metric. But also another thing about SoundCloud, like say you're just starting out and you're looking for a platform that you can use like for free. SoundCloud is good for that as well because you can post episodes for free. I think up to a certain extent, like you can't post 10 episodes a day, but you might be able to post like 2 to 3 episodes a month for free on SoundCloud, which could be great to give somebody their start. And but the bigger ones that we're seeing being used a lot are more of like the aggregate platforms like Buzzsprout, which is actually it's like a publishing platform where you could publish through Buzzsprout and it gets put onto all of the other platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, all the big main ones. Those types of services are getting really popular now because it just makes things easier for the hosts, right? And
Mhm.
they also help with episode promotion and things like that. They give you easy ways to maybe put a little bit of a budget behind something and to get your episode listened to. So there's a ton popping up out there. But yeah, those ones that I had mentioned before are kind of the main ones that we've been seeing through our experience. Throughout our agency, we probably touch on 1,000 different podcasts every day, with all of our agents and stuff. And, those are the main popular ones that we're seeing come up.
Great stuff. Yeah, we use Podbean, which has been pretty good since we moved to it. So
yeah, that's another one. That's another one that I got on here too.
Super. Well, Tom, this was a really, really nice conversation. Really glad that we had the chance to catch up and discuss podcasting this time.
Yeah,
let's do more of this.
Yeah, it's always great. Thanks for having me on again, and glad that you were down to talk about Kitkaster this time and get into the podcast marketing realm.
Yes. So for the guys here wanting to find out more about Kitkaster and podcasting, maybe you already have a podcast and you want to find out what other opportunities there are for you out there, we'll have the links to Tom and also to Kitkaster in the description of this episode. So as always, feel free to reach out to any of us or to myself, and then I'll communicate with Tom if there's anything that you feel we could do more for you, or if you have specific questions that you'd like us to try answering in a future episode. But until next time, Tom, again, a real pleasure to meet again and to have the chance to discuss. Thank you for your time and insights and secrets and everything. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Hope you have an awesome summer and looking forward to staying in touch. Speak soon.
Thanks, Andrei. It's been real.
Thank you too.